Didn't really work out all that well for Jack Bauer, by the way, when he did it.
Satan's just by your side whispering, boobs.
Yeah, because Satan really cares how much you wank it. It's so fucking stupid.
It's just folklore and storytelling gone awry.
Hello and welcome to the Church of Awesome.
The church to end all churches.
We'd like to thank you for joining our services today. Presiding in this meeting will be the Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Conducting is me, I'm the Demi-Pope Chris. Also joining us is Cardinal Om Spencer, son of Hagar.
Peace be upon him.
And Bill. Today our topic will be...
Mens rea versus actus reus.
Leading our discussion will be the Archangel Michael.
Hear him!
Hear me. Yes, today we're going to be talking about mens rea versus actus reus. Mens rea is Latin for guilty mind. Mens rea includes having a guilty mind, a wrongful purpose, and criminal intent. This is pretty much everything bad that goes on in your head that leads up to you actually doing something wrong. It is widely believed that every crime begins in your head. Actus reus is Latin for guilty act. Actus reus is the performance of a deed that is contrary to the law. The term act is defined by most as a bodily movement. Even when your tongue...
Or BM, as they abbreviate it.
Even moving your tongue to hire a hitman or pulling a trigger with your index finger can constitute a bodily movement and satisfy the definition of a guilty act. But this is broken down different kind of acts. You got voluntary acts, you have possession, threats, and omission to act. There's knowing possession is when you know you have something that you shouldn't, and then there's...
Like weed.
Anything that's contraband that
or
you
a
have.
boner when your grandmother kisses you.
There's it's called mere possession when you have something and you don't know it. It's just that, it's a mere fact that you happen to have it there,
yeah,
but you don't know it. And so,
well, but how can they prove that you knew it or not? If you admit it,
like anything, you have to prove it. Threats are not protected speech under the First Amendment of the Constitution. Threats are bad, okay? And
maybe we should rethink this whole fatwa thing, huh?
Yeah.
I'm going to keep
because we're only threatening diarrhea, and they can't prove that we're actually giving them diarrhea.
That's true.
Then you have an omission to act when you owe a duty to someone and you fail to carry it out, like child neglect is a classic example. Mm-hmm. The point of this is that to have a crime, you have to have both mens rea and actus reus. If you have one and you don't have the other, then you don't have a crime. To put it simply, if you just think about how you want to steal something, but you never act on it, then you're safe. And if something is stolen and you unknowingly have it, then you are also safe.
Mm-hmm. What about if you're talking about a criminal act, but you don't do it? Does the talking about it... I think it depends on the act.
Conspiracy to commit a crime? The definition of conspiracy to commit a crime is the meeting of two minds to agree to commit an illegal act. Mm-hmm. So if you are meeting with someone, if you're having a meeting to talk about it, that shows intent.
That shows intent.
Uh-huh. But there's a reason why there are three distinct types of homicide. For example, we were talking about murder. You have what's commonly called murder 1, murder 2, and murder 3. First degree murder is the taking of the life of another person with malice aforethought and with intent. Second degree murder is the taking of the life of another person with intent. And third degree murder, or also called involuntary manslaughter, is the taking of the life of another person. Mm-hmm. The first one, now those have different combinations of mens rea and actus reus. You have, in murder 2, it's often called a crime of passion, where you do something because of adequate provocation. Like you come home and you find your wife is messing around with some dude and you kill them both on the spot. You didn't really conspire or plan. It was a thing that happened because, something made you snap. Mm-hmm. And that's different than murder 1, where you planned it all out, you maybe did a little bit of your homework on where they're going to be, when are they going to be the most vulnerable, and you realize, I think...
Your Google search history is how to dispose of bodies.
I think they use the phrase lying in wait to kill someone, and that's worse. That's you really, really meant to. That's like super intent to kill someone. And involuntary manslaughter is basically you kill someone you didn't mean to. You obviously didn't plan it out ahead of time. And those are different and should be treated differently. There's a reason why we don't prosecute or execute the mentally ill, supposedly.
Unless you're in Texas.
Yeah. The Supreme Court has held that an accused person has to be competent to stand trial, and competency requires that the defendant can, 1, understand the nature of the proceedings, and 2, assist the counsel for his defense. And they have to be competent at every stage of the process. They can't all of a sudden go crazy during their sentencing hearing.
Yeah.
They can't condemn the crazy person.
Did I forget to mention that I'm crazy?
If the accused person can't understand what's going on, then they're not prosecuted. Usually he's taken to a mental facility to determine when or if he can stand trial in the future. There's a reason why we treat children differently.
I mean, it's the same reason, right? It's this. They're not mentally competent.
Exactly.
In the same way that, like, someone who is mentally incompetent is mentally incompetent.
Yeah. There's the legal term is called infancy. It's when they're not mentally capable of giving consent, and therefore they can't make contracts. That's why they don't go to jail generally unless they do something really horrendous.
Yeah, and are tried as adults.
Yes, they have separate justice systems for juveniles. It's a whole separate thing. I had to take a whole semester on just juvenile justice, and it was really boring. But it was fascinating because I visited a few courts. Like I went to a dependency court where they're deciding custody battles and sort of things like that, and see, because you never really think about that, like, I'm going to be in federal law enforcement. I don't have to care about custody hearings of kids like that's all. But no, you should be well-rounded anyway. And of course, it's part of a bachelor's program. But to treat kids, who are mentally incapable as if they're fully functioning adults is pretty unfair.
I mean, sometimes they do that just because the crime may be so horrific that that you can say, like, look, he knew what he was doing, kind of a thing.
Yes, yeah, those are called 707B offenses. Those are like your murders, your rapes, and all that shit. And if you're over 14 and you do something really bad, you can pretty much count on being charged as an adult. And really hate to be the ones on the side of a murderer, but look, you're either it's like, wait, we're old enough to go to war and kill a man, but we can't drink till you're 21. Like, what the fuck? So we've got a lot of weird standards, but
because you got to draw the line somewhere.
You do, yeah. There's no magic age where you're like, I'm smart now. Yeah, like, I understand things because you've got your brilliant 17-year-olds and your stupid 44-year-olds. So, if we were to have a society in which you were arrested or executed for just thinking something that wasn't pleasant or something that was taboo, that would be a police state. We don't convict thought crimes, but that's what Jesus does.
Yeah, I mean, that's the, if you look upon a woman to lust after her, then
you've committed adultery already in your heart.
Yeah, and so you're convicted with that. So you might as well go ahead and commit adultery.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get stoned to death either way in that society.
Well, and besides, on May 21st, when Jesus judged us all, he knew what we were thinking.
So there's no point repenting now, right?
Exactly. Well, and all you goody two-shoes out there, you might as well give it up now because you've already been judged. Yeah. It's like the last semester of senior year before you go off to college. Yeah. It's like, doesn't matter now. You already got in.
Yeah, I'm cleared. All right, now let's commune with the spirits. The spirit I am communing with is the Glenrothes Select Reserve. It's quite tasty. It's a nice, well-rounded, kind of a syrupy tasting yumminess. And it's very affordable as well.
All right, I'm communing with Ardbeg Ugadal. Spell that 3 times fast. Dare you?
Spell it 3 times fast.
And non-chill filtered. Woo. Doesn't say no color added, but based on the fact it's an Isla in a green bottle, as is customary, and the color's fairly light, it's probably no E150A in it. This is a peat explosion going off. in your mouth. This is for people.
It's the Pete Money Shot.
This is like if Lafroig wasn't peaty enough, and you're like, I'd like more of that, and just like set my esophagus on fire.
Yeah, turn it up to 11.
Ardbeg Ugadal.
I'm on call for work again, so I'm communing with the spirit of a Subway sandwich. It is turkey breast on honey oat bread with pepper jack cheese and lots of mustard. No mayonnaise. I have it cut in half, packaged separately, so that I can have half at lunch, half at dinner. It's very tasty.
Pepper jack.
Pepper jack is good.
Nah, provolone's better.
Agreed. But you're not in charge of my sandwich destiny, so.
Yes, I am.
And honestly, you're at Subway. No matter what, it's not going to be very good.
Subway, our new sponsor.
So let's get back to God and why he sucks.
Hooray!
Because, as Christopher Hitchens called it, he's the cosmic voyeur, that he's constantly supervising us and reminding us really how we're constantly falling short of this idiotic notion of perfection. Sin has always been described to me as anything that's contrary to the will of God. That covers both thoughts and actions and everything else, really. Anytime you're not perfect, whatever that means, you are sinning and you are guilty, and that means you are fucked. And it's amazing because you can't talk like acts of omission where like, well, I didn't pray 3 times today, and I could have done 12% tithing, or I could have done this extra stuff.
Could have helped this lady cross the street, and I could have.
Yeah. So you constantly are having strokes trying to worry about that shit, but also it's just like, well, I'm a teenage boy and I think about girls. I'm sinning. Are you fucking serious? Like,
it's like I'm sinning or human.
Yeah. It's like,
And to all you teenage boys out there, I'm going to warn you, it never goes away.
it really
Ever.
It's like, guess what? We're hardwired to be attracted to each other because that's how we propagate our species, you stupid idiots. Not because God instilled that power to be sacred and to see how we would handle it.
Pretty sure it's just Satan putting that in there.
Yeah, because Satan really cares how much you wank it. It's so fucking stupid. It's like
Satan's just by your side whispering, boobs.
Boobs. Well, did
Oh, is
you
that
ever
who's
hear
saying that?
Did you ever hear that there's like 7 angels on everyone, 7 of the devil's angels, and the people who are like, oh my god,
Those guys that ride motorcycles?
that's exactly what I was gonna say. That's what I was told by, I think, a bishop or something. It's the the guys who are riding motorcycles and gangs and stuff. They only got like 1 angel going, do this. They don't need a whole lot of convincing or provoking. But the good people like you and me, we've got like 11 or 12 angels on us, constantly working on us.
Going, boobs.
Yeah.
Boobs.
It's yeah, and it sounds so ridiculous now, but it's funny because you actually believe that.
Boobs.
And so on the one hand, you feel a little bit more impressed yourself, like I overcame so much temptation. There's such a great force against me, but really, you staved off the imaginary army of the imaginary creature. So it's
And now you're stuck with blue balls.
Yeah,
That is your reward.
yeah. Isn't it better to be righteous?
Boobs.
No. And we do stuff on accident all the time. We make mistakes. I may bump into someone and you'll apologize. Like, it's not a big deal. Like to treat that like it's the same thing as if I intentionally punched you in the face.
Or if you, in a completely honest and straightforward way, acted in what you thought was the best interest of everyone, and it turned out not to be. And then you would end up blaming yourself, saying like, oh, I wasn't in tune with the spirit of what would have been better for everybody. It's like you had completely honest intentions, you did the best you could, but it just didn't end up the right way. And with that mentality, you end up blaming yourself for things like that.
Yes, you're a sinner and therefore you're fucked.
Well, it's even doing the right thing but getting the wrong results. It's like, oh, I guess you didn't do the right enough thing.
Yeah,
that reminds me of my favorite Jesus-y kind of quote, and I have no idea who said it, but I use it all the time because I like it. And that's, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah, that's an old one. That goes way back.
That's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
And by goodie, I mean stupid.
Yeah.
And I usually use it when, somebody's trying to justify somebody's bad move by saying, well, they had good intentions. Bam, going to hell.
And to hell.
Yeah. Well, my favorite addendum to that is the road to hell is paved with good intentions and the skulls of unbaptized children.
Are those like the little bumps you go over between the lanes?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a cobbled road.
I wondered what those were.
Yeah. So the good intentions are the
when they reflect in your headlights,
But because we have such an impossible goal, even thoughts will destroy you. I mean, because even the slightest sin cannot be permitted to live with God, right? You'll never go to heaven if you even think bad things. And we can kind of control our thoughts. I mean, like, if I say, don't think of a pink elephant, what's the first thing you're thinking of? Don't think about boobs, And sinners,
by pink elephant, you meant boobs, right?
Yeah.
Always.
Like large.
Isn't that what they're called?
Boobs. It's a euphemism. But yeah, I mean, even in a dictatorship, even in Nazi Germany, I mean, your thoughts were your own. It was the only place that you could hide. Mm-hmm. But, not in a celestial dictatorship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in Nazi Germany, you did, just for being Jewish, you didn't have to do any overt act. You just being, if it got out that you were Jewish, then you were in
and
trouble.
if they could read your mind, then they would have.
Certainly.
But actually, I don't know if I could say the same for here. I think if the government could read our minds, I think they would.
Oh, totally.
And they would prosecute us for, thought crimes if they had the power to. But fortunately, they do not, and I don't think that technology is even, even theoretically possible.
Well, the Constitution is smart enough to protect speech. You'd think that thoughts would fall under the category of free speech.
Yeah, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I'd like to think.
We'd all like to think that. No, they'll just add an amendment to the Patriot Act, and then, which was just extended again, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah. Fun time.
My God, how much longer are the retroactive warrants they can get under FISA? Fuck. The whole concept of a retroactive warrant boggles my mind. But, for emergency terrorist Jack Bauer sort of situations, they used to have 24 hours. That seemed like enough to me. Then we made it 72 hours under the Patriot Act. That's a really fucking long time to have a retroactive warrant. Now, a warrant, like in the Constitution, is you get upon probable cause, which you should have before doing anything anyway.
Yeah.
Because probable cause is a set of circumstances that would lead a reasonable person to believe that a crime has occurred or is occurring and that person somehow responsible.
Yeah. Well, your flaw is a reasonable person.
If you don't even have that, why are you introducing policing powers into it? What the fuck?
Yeah.
But you have 72 hours to clean up that big mess you make after, doing excessive force based on a hunch.
Yeah.
Thanks, assholes. Didn't really work out all that well for Jack Bauer, by the way, when he did it. He usually saved the day, but at great cost to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I never watched that show.
I love that show. I'd marry it if I could. Yeah, when it comes to the laws of Hui in Narnia, you have it's happened or it hasn't. It's you thought about women, you thought about doing
boobs.
Boobs. You had a drink of coffee, and how do they know you did that? By the way, like, you would have to admit that. So, fortunately, they have you dragged with the guilt, so where you're going to confess it. So that's kind of a self-solving thing.
Yeah, unless you persist in the lie or something like that. But then they could just kind of badger you and guilt you. But it's like, if they don't have any power to guilt you, then they can't really get you on any crime.
Yeah. Have you sat in interviews and just lied straight to a bishop?
Oh yeah, plenty of times.
Oh, I never did, because I'm really not good at lying, and I can't lie and let it compound. I just can't handle it.
Yeah, but they're like, if I'm like, you have no right to ask that of me, I would either tell them like, you have no right to ask that of me. Or,
You've said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it's like, they only have whatever power that you give them.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I'm not going to give you the power.
Yeah, that's something I didn't realize till a lot later. That because you just assume that they have this power.
Again, that's why people can feel constrained by the concept of God. If you give him the power to do all these things to you in your mind, then he exists for you and he controls you to that extent.
Yeah, I remember in my logic class, the teacher said, you can't logically be afraid of anything that you don't think exists. So with that, I realized that I believe in vampires because I am actually afraid of vampires. So, yeah, replace the word vampires with God and you got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has made it a lot easier to let go. Like once the idea of a God existing is gone, because it gets to a point where it seems preposterous and really, if you read a lot of Dawkins and Hitchens, horrifying to think that there is a God that exists, especially the one as portrayed in the Old and New Testament.
Yeah, or any God that has been brought forth by the ideas of man.
I mean, I don't know enough about other superstitions, but I mean, Yahweh is just awful. He is horrendous, just without
they
shame.
all are.
Are they all that bad?
Yeah, some of them are worse.
Really?
Yeah, there's plenty. Well,
some of those Greek gods.
Yeah, yeah, because a lot of them is just like they couldn't give a fuck about you,
Yeah.
Well, they were basically,
or they were intentionally fucking with you.
Yeah,
yeah. Well, they're basically superpowered humans. Like they're only gods in the sense that they had powers that you didn't like. Kind of immortality, but not really. When you have Jehovah or Yahweh or whatever you want to call him, he was like apart from you. He was like the superseded everything, and he was all and everything, and Alpha and Omega and all that shit. So I don't even think about the Greek gods in the same category as Yahweh.
well, they're all gods. They are the same.
They're all special pleading.
Yeah, essentially, if you took, the Jewish God or the God of Abraham, and you split him up like 30 ways, you'd pretty much have the Greek gods.
I mean, he behaves a lot of the same way.
This is the god of jealousy. This is the god of...
Yeah, they just split it up more.
Actually, that makes
That's about it.
Because we have to cover all of our grounds of things we don't understand yet.
They put a little more drama and, a little more thought into their drama that they wrote for them.
Yeah, it's certainly a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Because
Much better written.
Yeah, the Bible is just revisionist histories and plagiarized nonsense.
It's just folklore and storytelling gone awry.
So to sum it all up, if you're going to have a justice system that means anything, you're going to have to allow...
Boobs.
Female court justices. Yeah.
Allow both a guilty mind and a guilty act before you start punishing people. Because if you don't have them both, then it's a joke. It's either, oops, I did something, well, better stone him.
Yeah.
Or it's, well, he looks like he's thinking something dirty. Let's stone him.
Yeah.
There's pretty much no gray area in that.
Well, because it's predicated on a being that knows everything. So you can say like, well, I'll ask the being that knows everything. He says you're guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, really. Anything that starts to resemble a theocracy, you already know you're going down a very bad road.
Yeah. Fatwas of the week. My fatwa is on toilet paper that is too thin. I cannot wipe my ass with that. It is not suitable. When I have to take half the roll of tracing paper and try to get something done with it, it just doesn't work. So your quarter ply toilet paper is not cutting it.
Why do they even make one ply anymore? Seriously. All right, I'm going to declare jihad on automatic transmissions. They suck. Whenever you go to accelerate, it always takes too long to kick down, and then it kicks down a gear too low, and you're just revved out all the way to the max. You get no acceleration. They're just slow and inefficient and get bad gas mileage and boring and shitty.
All right, well, my jihad of the week is on Star Trek The Next Generation and how much it completely sucks. It is a total abortion to the original idea of the franchise. And I have several examples. Now, I haven't been watching Star Trek for all that long, but I have definitely fallen in love with it, and I'd marry it if I could. The original series is brilliant for a lot of reasons. It has a lot of great themes that it addresses. The writing, it came out in 66 to 69 as its 3-season run, and it came out at the same time as you had the Twilight Zones, and you had really just brilliant writing, and the production value obviously wasn't as good because it was the 60s, but you had, it talked about diversity, it had the entire crew was made up of just a bunch of different races instead of having just a bunch of old white guys on there piloting the ship. You have a lot of just very clearly anti-religious themes, which are awesome. I mean, just one of my favorite episodes is Who Mourns for Adonis, where they actually run into Apollo, and they find that the Greek gods were actually these aliens that came to Earth, and of course any sufficiently advanced technology will be indistinguishable from magic, right? So the ancient Greeks thought that this alien were the gods, right? And so they see him, that it's a real person, that they actually meet him, and in the end they end up killing him and defeating the gods. I'm like, that is awesome. They kill gods, and I think that is something I could definitely get on board with. You have another example, a piece of the action, where they go to this culture where you have they like to imitate things, and so one crew left behind a book about 1930s, 40s Chicago gangsters. Yeah. So a book about gangsters, and they contaminate it, and this culture takes this book and uses it as its own personal Bible and models everything down to the smallest detail about gangsters and stuff like that. And so it's hilarious watching Bill Shatner go in there and do do the gangster voices and stuff like that. It was a fun episode, but it also was telling a great story, saying this is what happens when a society bases everything upon one book.
Well, that's why they have the prime directive in the first place.
Right, yeah. Non-interference is the prime directive. They don't mess things up because, the smallest thing could contaminate the whole culture.
The original series was all about the aspirations of the human race. It's kind of like what we were hoping that the world would be like in that many years.
Right off the bat, it's already asking a lot of us to believe, the suspension of belief of thinking that we didn't nuke ourselves over. Already, that we somehow were able to unify the entire world, or survive to build spaceships. Building spaceships, like you're talking about.
Did they say what year that was supposed to be?
They say 23rd century, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, that's enough time to nuke ourselves, then rebuild.
We get past our Mad Max stage, and then we go back. We run through everything from Mad Max to advanced technology because there's no Christianity, right? So you don't have 1,000 years of darkness. I like that idea. Okay, so compare that kind of stuff to the Next Generation. Well, first of all, one of many reasons I hate the Next Generation. Right off the bat, you have the way that the bridge is set up. In the original series, you have a captain in a chair, and up a little bit, you have the pilot and the navigator. Right behind him is a science officer kind of over his shoulder to tell him stuff. And then you have a communications officer over his left shoulder to tell him stuff. So there's communication, science, navigation, orientation, and then a pilot, and then a guy in the center to make command decisions, right? In the Next Generation, you have a ton of people on the bridge that you don't even know what they do. You have no clear science officer. First of all, you have the captain's chair is on the same plane and level with his right-hand man and his left-hand person, which his right-hand man is this... is Riker, I think his name is, who never does anything. He never does anything. To his left, he has a fucking...
places and get called to the bridge.
Yeah. And on his left, he has a fucking psychic. It's basically, she's called an empath, and she feels things, and that's really lame. But then in front of him up, you have...
It's really useful for navigating the universe.
You have,
I feel like we should turn left here.
Yeah, it's... And yes, to those who say, well, but Spock was telepath. Yes, but he actually had to touch things, and it wasn't like all touchy-feely. It was as scientific as you could make that concept.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Everyone's limited enough to to where you can use it as a plot device in certain situations.
Yeah.
So this one, she's just there, and she's just an antenna for this kind of stuff.
So there's no clear communications officer, there's no clear science officer, but for some reason, right over his left shoulder, he has a security head. Like, the head of security is right there, right behind him. So it's like, everything's just done by brute force in the future? I don't get it. Then you have a pilot,
he has a security officer on the bridge.
Yeah, the head of security is right behind him on the bridge.
Who? I mean, like, do they have passengers?
The original Enterprise's crew about 400, right? That was a Constitution class. The Enterprise D is a much larger one, still full of people who don't do anything. And then you have, I guess, a navigator and a pilot there, but it's not really very clear who's actually piloting. It's like none of it's really very clarified. Now, to be fair, I've seen all of the Next Generation movies and a couple episodes. I said I'm basically ready to write out the whole series. Give me the best. Give me. I will watch 4 episodes. And to give it a shot, and if these are good, then I'll think about going on. Right? Well, they're shit. They're awful. The first,
best still shit.
Yeah, the first episode makes no sense. They basically go into space and they run into what essentially looks like a Tholian web from the previous series. So it's basically this web that you can't go past, right? And instead of attempting
It's a wall in space.
Instead of attempting any kind of don't go around it or anything. Yeah. But instead of like attempting any diplomacy at all, they pretty much turn tail and run as fast as they can. Now, they have a mission to do, right? So they turn full reverse and they go faster than is reasonable for the ship, like beyond safety limits, and for no reason.
Ludicrous speed.
Yeah, and for no reason, they're separating the saucer. They don't really ever explain why, which is a stupid gimmicky thing in the first place, but is really dangerous. It even says, what's the deal with? He had basically.
They're like, are we like running from something? Or?
Yeah, exactly. He asks Data, which is essentially his neutered Spock, saying, what is it? Can we separate the saucer? And don't bother to ask why the fuck he's doing this. But it's like, no, it's not advisable at any speeds. Well, check theoretical. Okay, but there's no margin for error. Why are you doing this in the first place? And
let's do something dangerous just for shits and giggles.
From the beginning, it makes no sense, and it's just a series of bad command decisions, just from beginning to end. And everything is like the next one. Okay, we're talking about the holodeck is a really stupid device too. Instead of actually going to a planet where they find,
let's just pretend to go to the planet.
Let's just pretend. Let's spend
the imagination machine.
Yeah,
simulation of that.
Yeah.
There's one called The Big Goodbye in The Next Generation where they go, they're heading to some planet where they have to get everything just right. They don't say the greeting wrong, or if they don't say the greeting exactly right, then they offend the insect people and they won't be able to establish a moon colony, whatever the hell they're doing. And so they have to be very careful and have to do it 100% right. Well, hey, it's a few hours away. I'm going to spend some time in Dixon Hill novel, basically a little private dick novel
So he just wants to like relax.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Which I guess is a lot more.
We all need our time. From time to time, we all need to relax.
We all have to be dicks, yes.
We have to relax with our private dicks, yes.
And it's like the whole thing is inside this stupid computer game, and it all just feels so pointless. There's no substance to it at all because they're not actually going to a planet. They're just in a little VR booth. It's like, this is fucking stupid. And then, of course, the thing malfunctions, so they can't get a hold of the captain once they have to make the super important
greeting.
greeting.
They flub their lines when they...
Everything...
Welcome, we are at your line.
Everything is just so lame. I just can't get over how disappointed I am in the Next Generation. Oh, I will, in defense of the Next Generation, I'll say there was one good episode that I've seen so far. And it was good. It was called Relics. Mm-hmm. It was Scotty was in it, and it was brilliant. The way they did it was kind of cool, where they find this crashed ship, and
well, how far ahead of original series is Next Generation supposed to be?
About 75 years, I think. So they've gone through a whole Enterprise since then. They've gone the whole Enterprise B was from Generations, and there was C that no one ever saw, and then D is the one that Patrick Stewart is flying. Mm-hmm. So it's just to say. Time passed. There was a C. I don't think they ever saw it. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Scotty was in this episode. It was cool because they find this ship, and they find that it was kind of like the transporter was kind of looped in on itself in a very creative way, and that Scotty's pattern was in there because what happened was that ship crashed, and Scotty said, well, there's no way we're gonna be able to, we have enough supplies to wait for a rescue party, so we'll basically beam ourselves in and just loop it. And so he survived that whole time, and he comes out and he looks just the same fat guy he was in Undiscovered Country. And it was cool. It was so cool seeing him in that world and talking about how just no more soul. It was great because he actually goes into the holodeck. He said, "Show me the Enterprise bridge. No bloody A, B, C, or D. The Enterprise." And it goes into the original set from the '60s, and they blue screen him in. It was really cool. Yeah. And he has a whole conversation with Picard, and it was cool. It's talking about basically how the Enterprise D is soulless now. It's like, I used to be able to tell you how fast the ship was going just by the feel of the floorboards. Now, I don't feel anything. Yeah. I'm like, fuck yeah. This is telling...
You pinpointed everything that's wrong with it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, he totally spoke to me. And it was cool because Scotty also ends up saving the day when the ship gets in fucking trouble. And it was awesome. It was like, that is going to be possibly the only good episode.
Yeah, that's only because there's so much original series in it.
Yeah, exactly. Because without Scotty, it might have been an okay episode. It's a clever idea, but it's because of Scotty, man. Yeah. But
racial stereotypes.
Yeah, he also wasn't Scottish, by the way.
Yeah. Wasn't he Welsh or something?
No, he was Californian, I think. He was just a voice actor. But yeah, fuck Star Trek: The Next Generation. Yeah. They're all lame. And don't even get me started on the Borg. Fuck the Borg.
Have you seen any of the other Star Treks?
Oh, like Voyager, Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise? No. No, my policy right now is if there's no Spock, there's no Star Trek.
That's good policy. I'll stand by that.
Yeah, because it's like the characters, they all suck. You've got Picard, who's pretty two-dimensional. He can be very kind of charming, and Patrick Stewart is awesome.
And he's just a really good actor.
Yeah, but his character is
10 gauge.
Yeah, yeah. He's a terrible captain. Makes a bunch of really stupid decisions, and yeah, it's the fucking psychic. And then you got a Klingon there. I'm not a big fan of Klingons. I think Klingons are lame.
Well, I mean, they're the bad guys of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Except this one.
Yeah, except for Worf, who's fucking lame. It's like they split Spock.
Put a black person in it, so yeah,
that's right.
Gotta make some.
Yeah, because Uhura's not there, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's like they split up Spock into Worf and Data, and Data's so lame. He's an android who wants to be human, and so he has all that.
I'll be a real boy.
Yeah. So he has all those awkward, I'm not really a person kind of things, and like, okay, that's.
But I bet he dances the robot well.
That's a little, let's say, it's a little endearing, but it's not Spock. And I guess Worf maybe is doubling as a science officer. He always has kind of this dry, very scientific way of saying things, but
which is like the opposite of what Klingons are supposed to be.
Yeah, he never says anything intelligent. Like it's, yeah, the characters are baffling to me, and it's just like.
Well, I mean, the original Klingons are supposed to be like Spartans. They're warlike. They're not interested in culture or anything. They're just brutish and warlike people. Yeah. Oh, I'm racist saying all that, though. No offense to all you Klingons out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Klingons are lame. That's how I feel. But yeah. Although I do like the Enterprise D. I like the shape of it. I know you hate it, but
I hate it.
I think it's cool. It seems a more practical design than the original.
Yeah, it's very aerodynamic for space.
Which is important.
Yeah, it is.
That's, yeah. So that is my fatwa of the week. We'd like to thank you for joining us this week, and now we will leave you with the gift of tongues. I björshustug dag blackes not, ekert il skal flisha minum agum, latum ba sente boyucha ilugaiti varis man mim los Green Lanterns.
Your Google search history is how to dispose of bodies. Yeah. Did I forget to mention that I'm crazy?
You're going to have to allow boobs. But But you're not in charge of my sandwich destiny, so...
The comments made by the hosts and other participants are the opinions of the individuals and not those of any corporate entity. All data and information provided in this program is for informational purposes only. The Church of Awesome makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, currentness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis. If you like what you've heard in today's sermon, come visit us at churchofawesome.com or follow us on Twitter at COA Podcast.